Well, today is Halloween Eve. It's October 30th. We're expecting a freeze tonight. It's supposed to get down to 32. I don't know. I have my doubts, but they say freeze warning. And I thought I would take one last walkthrough on my garden because if it freezes, I'll have something to compare it against tomorrow. This is my spinach. This is spinach. We'll see if it's able to take the freeze. If it does indeed freeze. But this is my spinach. And I'm hoping it'll survive. This is starting to come up, and I think it might be kale, but I'm not sure. I forgot what I planted in here. Kale or spinach. It's just coming up. Now this looks like, oh geez, looks like more spinach is coming up. And tonight is kind of a experiment to see what can take the cold, because I'm not going to try and protect them. If they make it, it's good. If they don't make it, well, the ones that make it, I'll know what to plant. Okay, that's the idea. Can't say as I know what's going to happen to these beans over here, but they've got blooms on them, as you can see. They're blooming, and my pepper plant is blooming. It's got bloom on it. My tomatoes, they look a little bit spent. Probably don't like the cold weather. I don't expect to have much of any tomatoes, if any, if it in fact gets that cold that they say 32 or below. I think the tomato plants will not survive it. But even they have blooms on them. This is a freak cold front that's come through. And we usually don't get our first frost or freeze until November 15th. And you can see that that would be about a half a month away. Here's some more blooms on a different pepper plant. And the zinnias, also beautiful. I don't know if they'll survive the freeze or not. I certainly don't think we're going to get any frost because we don't have the humidity for it. It's too dry for frost. But it's been a beautiful garden. I hope it makes it through the night, but the reason I'm making this video is for comparison to see what actually happens in this cold night ahead. I have my swamp cooler turned off, and I have the furnace turned on, so I am prepared for the cold night ahead. looking at my bean plants. They produced well this year, and they haven't given up yet, although they do look a mite tired, along with the tomatoes. You would be ashamed to lose the tomato plants tonight, because if you look here, I have some nice green tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. We'll see what happens. I'm prepared to lose them all. If that's the case, then I would say it has not been a very good growing season, because we've had at least 2 months of 100 and above this summer, and then it drops off from super hot to freezing. Here's some more of my squash plants. In general, you can see them. They haven't given up blooming. There's still blooms on them. But I think the weather has not been a good year for growing. Now let's take a look over here. This is my Swiss chard, and it looks like maybe it needs more sun, because I can see the leaves are yellowing. And let's pull this one up if I can to let you take a look. It's a good, healthy plant. We'll see if it can take the cold weather. I'll know tomorrow when I come out. But this was planted in spring, and I hope it makes it through. And then we have the other plants as well. Now this plant here, I believe that this is the spring mix. I think these are mustard greens coming up. Okay? And we'll see if they're still around tomorrow. These other plants over here, this is the spring mix that I have actually physically removed the mustard greens from it. I'm not fond of mustard greens, but my wife likes them. But this is a spring mix without the mustard greens. And over here is the same spring mix. Over here, again, more spring mix. So, I'm going to put this cage back on. Over here is a very heat tolerant. It's a Malabar, and I've let it go to seed. Not real fond of the Malabar, because it's on the slimy side for me. Okay, but I have lots of seeds, and unless this plant succumbs to the cold weather. Okay, for what it's worth, we'll see what happens. Tonight will tell what I'm going to plant in the future. Summer's gone, winter's coming along. Well, here I am. It's October 31st. It's Halloween, and my Malabar couldn't take the cold. As you can see, it's wilted. Okay. Astonishingly, some of it made it. There are certain leaves that survived. It seems like the ones out here towards the end were the ones that survived better. But for the most part, the Malabar is gone for this season. Some of the squash plants didn't make it. This is an example of one of them. And this kind of had it. But if you look over here, you'll see that this one made it through okay. And I guess there were just certain portions in the yard that froze. As you can see here, the spinach pulled through just fine. The freeze didn't affect them at all. I think it only got down to about 32 degrees last night. So the spinach made it. And kind of like what I thought, the kale made it too. I wasn't sure. But I had a sneaky suspicion that the kale was going to pull through just fine. To my surprise, the beans made it through. These are the Blue Lake green beans. And my wife's going to pick one of these green beans. And if she's able to do it, that would be good. And I'm really surprised because it's even got blooms on it.
Kind of soft.
Yeah, but it didn't freeze, did it?
No, I don't think so. Might come back, who knows?
Yeah.
Look, they're right here.
Look at those. That's great. Okay, well the beans pulled through on the freeze. Here's another bean plant that pulled through, and there's a bean on it, and we're going to pull it. I didn't think beans were that cold tolerant, but these are. That's wonderful. Well, my pepper plant didn't freeze, and I'm quite surprised about that. I thought they would. And down here is a little bitty pepper. I don't know if you can see it right there. So maybe I get lucky and have some more peppers this season. You know what's amazing is that the tomato plants did not freeze. I can't explain this. I thought they would be the first to go. Even the blooms are still intact. And I even have little cherry tomatoes to pick. There's one back deep in the bush right there. Here's my other pepper plant, my bell pepper plant that has blooms on it. And I'm looking down here, and I even see a pepper. Right here. Can you see that pepper? Get the leaf out of the way. Here's some other bean plants that made it through the freeze. They are tired, been around all season, and the birds and the insects have had their way with them. But they're still alive and they didn't freeze. And here's some more proof that tomato plants can withstand the freezing temperatures. And again, I say I only think it got down to 32, maybe 31 last night. And they made it. To my amazement and great pleasure, the zinnias did not freeze. They made it through just fine. And I'm very happy about that. This was one of my favorites right here because it looked like a strawberry inside. And it made it. It made it. Imagine that after a freeze. And it does look like these little cherry green tomatoes just might get a chance to ripen up. Look at this squash. This one came through with flying colors. It's still even got the bloom on it. But this one, I think because maybe it was laying on the ground or it just got old, it's had it for the season. The mustard greens made it just fine, as you can see. I thought they might make it, being a spring mix, and they did. They made it, mustard greens. And my Swiss chard made it too. It shows no signs of frost or freeze damage, and it was able to take the cold. Very happy. I think it's time to harvest some more leaves. Here's my spring mix, just lettuce and beet greens and things like that, and it made it through just fine too. It didn't freeze up, and all is well with these plants. I have them in other buckets as well. I cut off the bottom of a milk carton, or I should say a water bottle. Water that you get water, 1 gallon, and that's what I have them planted in. And they're doing pretty good in spite of the freeze. The onions were not affected by the freeze. I didn't expect them to be affected. They seem to grow well even through the winter. This is last year's onion crop. We just keep picking the green stalks or leaves off of these, and we use them in our baked potatoes and other ways to season food. What's surprising for me is the way these chives have come back. They have started growing again now that it's cooled off. So the chives must be a cool weather or cold weather crop, or maybe I should say herb. Worked out well.